Good evening, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Blue Ridge Excursions. I'm Jack Neal. Excursions is a community magazine show that highlights the many great things happening in our area. We've been out there visiting many of you, and now we'd like to share some of those things that we've seen. First, we'd like to introduce you to Calvin Oliver. Calvin is a New Yorker who has brought his art to Roanoke. Take a look and see how he's working to further beautify our area.
Once again, the lure and charm of the South has captured another great talent.
I'm from New York.
But Calvin is now living and working in the Roanoke Valley. He says that Roanoke was exactly the escape he was looking for.
I just wanted to get away from the hustle and bustle and, being stuck between a rock and a hard place kind of things. Yeah, actually, that's what drew us here.
And with him, Calvin brought his love for art and his talent with stained glass. A talent that began with a couple of antique stained glass chandeliers and a stained glass shop near his New York home.
So I brought the chandeliers to the shop, and basically that's where it started. That's where it started. The owner of the shop, him and I, we talked, and he just invited me down to the shop, and that's where it really began.
According to Calvin, it's not really such a long trip from that New York glass shop to the Harrison Museum in Roanoke City.
I had intentions on coming to the museum a year ago, actually, and I was into these different guardian angels that I do. Color-wise was just, I was getting different ideas about doing some African angels. And basically, I just came to the museum.
Not long after that initial visit, Calvin was invited to join several other local artists here at the Harrison Museum of African American Culture. It was a move that seemed obvious to museum organizers.
Well, Harrison Museum of African American Culture's mission is to research, preserve, and interpret the achievements of African Americans, and basically in the fields of art, performing arts, literature, and history. And Calvin Oliver's work is actually superb, an obvious incentive for us to promote his works and what he's done.
And it seems that the museum is just as attractive to Calvin as he is to it.
I just like the things they sort of advertise and the showings that they do have at the museum. And it felt like a comfort zone, actually.
That comfort zone seems to nurture Calvin's talent. Since joining the artists at the Harrison Museum, his body of work has increased and his pieces have been made available for sale at several other shops around Roanoke. It's clear that this success hasn't diminished any of Calvin's enthusiasm for his hobby.
For me, it's very exciting, and very rewarding, because when I do make the pieces and I just look at the folks' faces, I just look at their faces, how they just oohs and ahs, and I get really motivated also. And just to make them feel good really helps me to feel good.
There are works by several other Roanoke area artists now showing at the Harrison Museum of African American Culture. You can view the work of Vernie Bolden, E. Antoinette Hale, and Irene Childress. For more information about these artists, contact the museum at 540-345-4818. If you're looking for more of Calvin's work, you can find his pieces at Under the Sun, Valley Gifts, and the Magic Gallery, all in Roanoke. Or check out his website at www.calvinoliver.freeservers.com.
Calvin is the only artist in the area who's licensed to use the Virginia Tech logo and the Hokie bird in his work. Now let's head just north of Roanoke onto Main Street in Buchanan, where one couple is helping to revitalize their hometown.
Many people would say that it's well past its prime, but Dale and Gloria Carter can see the potential in the old Buchanan Theater.
It's been closed long, and a lot of us have wanted to see it reopen. And having sold our place recently, we were able to financially take it on, not for profit, but for community.
Built in 1914, the old theater is one of the few buildings on Buchanan's Main Street that hasn't been renovated. Most of them have been cleaned up as part of the town's revitalization project, a project that the Carters are thrilled to be a part of.
We wanted to be involved with the town of Buchanan because it's the only town we have, even though we're not residents. The revitalization of the entire downtown program was very important to us and a project very dear to our hearts. so I was most anxious that we could be a part of that.
And for Gloria and Dale, being part of the downtown revitalization means a very ambitious undertaking.
The work is going slowly. A lot of it I've done myself to this point. I have a good friend who's standing here in the background, a young man who I'm trying to teach how to renovate a theater. Neither of us know what we're doing. We're just taking it step by step. We've torn out the walls, as you'll see. Yesterday we spent several hours taking up chewing gum. It's been there for many years. But we've gotten the roof replaced and painted. We're going to have new guttering. That will stop the water problem.
Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done in order to get the theater up and running, particularly since there hasn't been a movie on this screen since 1985. But the Carters say that they're finding a great deal of motivation in the community.
I think this has been one of the most enthusiastic projects that's been taken under to date.
Everybody's excited.
Everybody stops to tell us, particularly courting couples stories. Oh, I had my first date here, but I'm not going to tell you about it. Something to that effect. But people have a lot of happy memories associated with the theater.
And according to Buchanan's revitalization manager, those memories are only one of the reasons to preserve the theater.
Well, with the theater, it's a pretty pivotal property for downtown because it's such a large structure, but also it's a major social hub of the community. It has a lot of collective memories. A lot of the older generations have very good memories of the community there.
That includes Dale Carter.
Well, living on a farm, of course, in the summertime, we usually worked on weekends, but in the wintertime, I can remember coming here many times on Saturday afternoon to the afternoon matinees with Roy Rogers, Regina Aldridge.
And Harry hopes that the theater will be a center for more than the town's memories.
The theater is a catalyst for our nightlife activity for downtown. It will hopefully draw people from all the surrounding communities as far away as Stanton and Roanoke into our community once again.
The enthusiasm, the motivation, and the determination are all there. So when can you come and visit the theater?
The only goal that I have set for myself, so I don't have to meet a deadline, is for the fall festival, the Mountain Magic in the fall here in Buchanan.
Mountain Magic will be Saturday, October 6th. Join the town of Buchanan for a special festival featuring bluegrass music, great food, arts, crafts, and antiques. Contact Harry Gleason at 540-254-1212 for more information.
Buchanan isn't the only place that's been remembering its history these days. Many of us know that Lexington is a haven for much history, but this time of year it seems to be emerging from every field in the area. Let's go now and see how the cadets of VMI remember their part in the Civil War.
By 1864, the tendency was for young men to come to VMI to receive some rudimentary basic military knowledge and then to leave VMI and join usually the Army of Northern Virginia. And sometimes their being here was a compromise with their parents' desire and the young man's desire. The young man, of course, wanting to rush off and join the Army in the field, where the parent is saying, why don't we be more reasonable about this? Why don't you go to the Virginia Military Institute? You'll become an officer. You'll better be able to serve the Confederacy. And of course, the parent is thinking, and maybe the war will be over before you graduate. So the corps that's going to fight at Newmarket is predominantly not just cadets, but new cadets, just starting their cadetship. 2/3 of them, in fact. When they arrived there on that rainy Sunday of May the 15th, 1864, about 250 would serve as infantry, and about 30 would serve as artillery.
Due to the generosity of VMI alumnus George Collins, the Institute owns and operates the Newmarket Battlefield State Historical Park. The park hosts the annual reenactment of the 1864 battle. Scott Harris, the park site director, recounts that fateful day in history.
In the spring of 1864, with the Civil War already 3 years old, General Ulysses S. Grant, commanding the Union forces, ordered Major General Franz Sigel to advance up the Shenandoah Valley with a Union army with the objective of taking Stanton, Virginia, and also controlling Newmarket Gap. By doing this, Sigel would not only take the valley out of the war for the Confederacy, potentially, but also be in a position to aid Grant as he was conducting operations against Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia to the east. General John C. Breckinridge, commander of Confederate forces in the valley, assembled what troops he could find, including cadets from the Virginia Military Institute, to meet Sigel's threat. On paper, Sigel had a considerable numerical advantage, some 10,000 troops, whereas Breckinridge was barely able to muster 5,000. The action opened behind us off towards Shirley's Hill, where Confederate forces observed Union troops in the town of Newmarket and started to take fire from artillery positions posted on Bushong's Hill and closer to the town. As the Confederate forces advanced, they exchanged fire with Union regiments that occupied the high ground and used their artillery to particular advantage. General Breckinridge, who originally intended to fight a defensive battle, quickly realized that the ground here gave him an opportunity, in fact, to attack Sigel's force and drive it back down the valley. He ordered several regiments forward, which encountered heavy fire from Union artillery in particular, and also suffered a cavalry charge on their right flank. This cavalry charge failed, and Breckinridge saw the momentum of the battle shifting and went over to the attack. Unfortunately, a number of his units had been severely cut up by the Union fire, and Breckinridge was forced to put the Virginia military cadets into the battle. Breckinridge had been reluctant to bring the cadets along, but was forced into this because of the lack of men that he could bring to the battle. He knew that they were brave and well trained, but because of their young age and the fact that they had not previously been under fire, he wasn't sure whether he could count on them when needed. He also hoped to spare them the horrors of combat by having to take part directly in the battle. However, by the afternoon of May 15th, it was clear that an opening in the Confederate line had to be filled. And although he was against it, General Breckinridge did give the order to send in the VMI cadets. His specific words are quoted as being, "Send the boys in, and may God forgive me for the order." The cadets took position around the farm of the Bushong family here on the battlefield, dividing 2 companies to the west, 2 companies to the east to get around the Bushong family's house, and forming up in the orchard behind us on the edge of the field that they would cross. The cadets were taking fire and ultimately would lose 10 of their number to enemy fire, 5 dying on the battlefield, 5 more dying later of their wounds. As they exchanged fire with the Union line up here on Bushong's Hill, it was realized that the Union was beginning to retreat from their positions. The cadets and other Confederate units surged forward across an intensely muddy field that in fact became known as the Field of Lost Shoes. This was because the mud was so severe it literally sucked the shoes off the feet of some of the men as they charged. As the cadets charged across the field in company with other Confederate troops, they took possession of a Union cannon, one of several that were abandoned by Sigel's force as they began their retreat. At this point, Breckinridge halted the cadets, their job having been done, and continued the pursuit with the rest of his forces, ultimately stopping as Sigel's men crossed Smith Creek north of the battlefield and retired to Woodstock. Among the VMI cadets taking part in the battle were 2 young men who had formed a particular friendship. Moses Ezekiel was VMI's first Jewish cadet and had aspirations of becoming an artist. He struck up a friendship at VMI with Thomas Garland Jefferson, a descendant of President Thomas Jefferson. Ezekiel and Jefferson took part with the rest of the Corps of Cadets in the battle, which resulted in Jefferson's wounding. Following the conflict, Ezekiel found his friend and helped get him to the home of a local family where he was nursed during his final hours. Ezekiel stayed close by Jefferson during the entire time, comforting him, bathing his face with cold water, holding on to him and trying to make his last hours as pleasant as he possibly could. At one point, he even read from the New Testament for his friend. Finally, young Jefferson died, and Ezekiel saw that his body was prepared for burial. Following the Civil War, Ezekiel became a world-famous sculptor, having gone to Cincinnati to study art at the advice of Robert E. Lee. Perhaps his most significant work, certainly personally to Sir Moses, would be Virginia Mourning Her Dead, the work he created to guard over the graves of the VMI cadets killed at Newmarket, who are buried at the Institute in Lexington.
Right after the Battle of Newmarket, in 1866, a Union officer, a fellow named Francis Towns, who had been on General Sigel's staff at the Battle of Newmarket, said it is right and proper that VMI should remind every generation, every class, of what their forebears had done on May the 15th of 1864 at the Battle of Newmarket, so that they would be inspired to similar deeds, similar duty, similar service. And this is coming from a Union officer, not one of the Confederates that was there, but from a Union officer who saw that cadet charge from the other side of the field. The distinctive feature of the New Market Day Parade, of course, is when the cadets are called upon to give the roll call. And as it goes from company to company, you hear those names echoed across the field. Cadet Atwell died on the field of honor, sir. Cadet Hartsfield died on the field of honor, sir, until all of those names are called. It's quite a privilege to be asked to give that roll call.
Sergeant Campbell died on the field of honor, sir. Private Crockett died on the field of honor, sir. Private Wheelwright died on the field of honor, sir.
Sir, Corporal Atwell, Private Haynes, Private Jefferson, Private McDowell, Private Stannard, Private Wheelwright, Sergeant Campbell, Private Crockett, Private Hartsfield, and Private Jones died on the field of honor, sir.
And Virginia mourning her dead, that statue, in fact, is looking out across that collective body of cadets, kind of asking a question: who amongst you will be called upon for this same kind of service to your country, to your fellow man?
You know, I was lucky enough to be able to attend the commemoration, and it was a very moving experience. It brought us back to a different time, a time of honor. Now let's move from New Market down the Blue Ridge Parkway for some entertainment that's a little more soothing. Take a look at the sights and sounds of the Blue Ridge Parkway's Garden Festival.
Welcome to the 3rd Annual Blue Ridge Garden Festival at Virginia's Explore Park.
Welcome to Explore Park. Enjoy your day today. Thank you.
We have celebrity lecturers, demonstrations,
Today, but you don't. So what am I going to do at this point?
garden demos, a bookstore presented by Barnes & Noble, food and drink from Mill Mountain Coffee and Tea.
Thank you for stopping at Mill Mountain and enjoy your day. Okay. Good.
Vendors selling exciting wares and fun things for your home garden.
We have some architectural ironwork here. They're fairly popular. The wire baskets.
Great kids activities.
We're making putting together a bug house from a kit.
Yeah, this dude, he saw a centipede out in there, and he like took a paper towel and he like picked him up in a paper towel and then threw him in. I opened this thing and I slid him in. Should he put him down?
No. Put one in the middle.
Everything for the gardener, whether you're a beginner to an expert.
Have the heliotrope towards the back and come in with a bat-faced kuffia on either side, because this will give you height, and this will pick up your purple, and then this will give you something to trail.
Explore Park Zone interpreters are on hand to talk about how gardening was done in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries.
My name is Eddie Goon. I'm the 18th century coordinator at Virginia's Explore Park, and today we're talking about tea. In the colony of Virginia, since we're a loyal British subject, tea is a large part of our culture here. We import 7 varieties of tea from China. Of these, we have the green teas like Hyson, Singlo, and Oolong. And in addition to the green teas, we have the black teas, Kung Fu, Orange Pekoe, Souchong, and Buhi tea. Out on the frontier, though, a lot of the settlers use natural teas, and some of the famous or common natural teas are sassafras, which is made from the root of the tree, smooth sumac, which is tea made from the fuzzy red berries of the smooth sumac tree. And we have a personal favorite of mine, which is spice bush. Spice bush grows around springs and creeks. You crush the leaves or boil the bark, and you can make tea from this very common plant here. The settlers also grow a lot of teas, and in our herb gardens and kitchen gardens, we grow things like spearmint, chamomile, peppermint, and these are popular teas. We think that these have medicinal properties as well, and spearmint was used to settle an upset stomach. If you're ever out in the fields and the bugs are bothering you, you can use any of the natural mints, pennyroyal, catnip, spearmint, or peppermint. You can rub these leaves on your clothing or on your body, and this is a wonderful natural insect repellent as well. So a few teas from the colony of Virginia.
The proceeds from this event go to fund interpretive programs for the school children in the Roanoke Valley. We'd like to thank everyone who was able to come out for the Blue Ridge Garden Festival this year, and if you weren't able to make it, we'll look forward to seeing you in June 2002, so mark your calendars now. Thanks so much, and have a great gardening year.
The folks at the Explorer Park say they'd like to think of the festival as a garden of resources because of the wide variety of plants they showcase. The festival is also able to appeal to all kinds of gardeners, from novice all the way up to expert. Now we'd like to introduce you to Rural Retreat's own Kenneth Kegley. Kenneth is one of Blue Ridge Public Television's Young Heroes. The Young Hero Award was designed to recognize young people who have overcome significant obstacles in their lives and gone on to set a positive example for others. We'll be introducing you to this year's heroes in the coming weeks, but right now we'd like to treat you to a dose of Kenneth's very special brand of charm.
I guess I'm just a charmer.
And it seems that no one who's ever met Kenneth Kegley would argue with that. It's pretty clear that everyone at Rural Retreat Elementary admires him.
Kenneth loves life. He's taught all of us that each day is a gift, and we look forward to seeing him come in every morning. He has a smile on his face. Nothing gets him down. He's always fine, no matter what's going on in his life. He'll tell you everything's okay, he's doing great.
While that may always be his answer, Kenneth hasn't always been doing great. For a long time, his health was very questionable. He's been in and out of hospitals from the time he was just 3 months old.
When I was probably about 2 years old, it was probably about 1 week before my 3rd birthday. We went down to Durham, North Carolina, where I go see my doctors. And they found out I had cancer. And of course, well, that broke my mom and dad's heart.
When you hear something like that, it's just devastating. I mean, you know, you can't believe it. You don't want to believe it, really, is what it is. And you just have to keep looking and telling yourself everything's going to turn out all right. You know, it's going to be all right.
Kenneth had been diagnosed with a form of juvenile leukemia, but it was his charm and positive attitude that helped to convince everyone that everything really was going to be all right.
Bone marrow biopsies are not fun, and yet when he would get finished with it, he would sit up and wipe the tears out of his eyes and say thank you to the doctors.
I had to have a bone marrow transplant. There was a woman named Sue, and her blood matched mine, and so they did surgery on her and pulled out a teaspoon of blood from her back, and they gave it to me in my IV. And then I was cured.
He's a wonderful kid. I mean, with all of his problems, all rolled into one. To be around Kenneth, you wouldn't know there was a thing wrong with him. He's there. If I'm feeling low or whatever, he'll pat me on the back and say, well, Mama, don't worry about it. God's taking care of you. And just, he's that way by everybody. I think, truthfully, that God sent us Kenneth as a special gift.
Special gift or little ray of sunshine. Whatever you want to call him, he's still a 13-year-old boy.
Well, I think he's a great kid because, you know, he's like all little boys. He likes to follow me around. He likes to play ball. He loves his puppies. He's got some beagles. He loves to care for his beagles. He's just a regular little boy. He's my buddy.
He's pretty special. He's always been my hero. I've always told him that.
Kenneth and his family say they've been tremendously thankful for all the help that they've gotten from their community. And if you're looking for something to do in your own community, we may have just the answer for you. Welcome to our community calendar. It's our chance to let you know what's going on in your area. If you're looking for more information, be sure to check out our website at WBRA.org. That's about all the time we have for this week's edition of Excursions. Be sure to join us next week when we'll show you what happens when tanks come rolling into Danville, as well as telling you about the new home for culture in the Roanoke Valley. Thanks for joining us. Good evening.
For more information about Blue Ridge Public Television and our local programs, check out our website at www.wbra.org. And if you have an interesting story that you'd like to share with us, please contact us by email at brex@wbra.org or give us a call here at the station, 540-344-0991 or toll free 888-332-7788. We're always glad to hear from our viewers. See you next week for Blue Ridge Excursions.